Trauma in organizations. People don't think of organizations suffering from trauma. And I know that people don't even think of countries suffering from trauma, but that is a big topic today. Trauma in countries, communities, and organizations. What do you describe as a trauma that can affect an organization?
There are two. You've got to first look at, are you talking about the organization per se?
Yes.
Or you're talking about the personnel?
I'm talking about the organization, and the personnel.
Two different things.
Yes.
So in an organization, you can have a trauma to an organization that results in or stems from a merger and acquisition.
Okay.
Because if it's not handled really well and really systemically, which sounds odd but is important, you find that you develop burdened positions, organizations feel less important than or like they've been taken over or engulfed. Accidents in the workplace, a big workplace accident, those are traumas in organizations. A recession, downsizing, there are a number of those that can really put bankruptcy, chronic, at least a beautiful one. Bankruptcy, I've seen that result in things like total stagnation where people want to move forward but they don't dare because they're too scared that they'll repeat what happened. And this is a trauma for an organization. What it does is it creates burdened positions, it creates stagnation. You find that they get gridlocked and paralyzed. And then you begin to notice that people too become accident prone, as though they're repeating the trauma, especially if it's not spoken about. If it's well documented, well spoken about, people can learn from it. But even in places like your big oil and gas companies, when they have an oil spill, this is a big trauma for the organization. People don't think so. They think it doesn't mean anything to them. It's affecting the communities, but not them. It's a big trauma for them. And you find that they may also get gun-shy. They don't want to appear in front of the camera. They give bite-sized clips. The heart of the organization seems to go quiet, and they get into process. They won't engage with the press. It shuts it down in a lot of ways, so it can't breathe.
Have you seen a checklist, or have you devised a checklist on trauma in organizations?
More likely, I've devised a checklist.
Oh, okay.
So is there high turnover? Is there low morale? Do we have burdened positions where there's your revolving door or ejector seat syndrome? Do we notice that people are frightened to make new decisions? Do we see that the upper management doesn't move much? They follow what they think keeps them safe. So they go into being over-safe. Now, if you're looking at personnel, you have two kinds of trauma. And in fact, even with an organization, you can have chronic or acute trauma. So if it's a chronic trauma, it's for personnel, you can see things like being picked on, being isolated, being excluded, being singled out.
That's bullying.
It is bullying, and that's your chronic trauma. But if you have something like a workplace accident, somebody gets fired and it feels like a very unfair dismissal, this is traumatic for the personnel. Nobody feels safe anymore. Suddenly they start to back off being able to say much. They get into defensive mode. And of course then you lose innovation.
So I'm back to the bullying. So when you have a situation where there's bullying in the workplace, is it quite likely that there was a trauma that happened beforehand? Or there could be a number of things that could have happened?
Well, so then you've got a number of ways to look at it. There could be a trauma that happened before, or you may find that there could be a trauma that happened to the bully, or there could be a trauma that happened to the victim, and that goes from home, jumps into the workplace. Okay. So now your dynamics crossed over from the family into the organization.
And this goes back to the conversation we had earlier about why it's so difficult to leave
your family at home. Yeah.
Because if you've got someone who's been bullied, chances are they're going to bring that I don't know, what do you want to call it? I was going to say that sense of victimhood.
Absolutely.
Into the organization.
Yeah.
And if somebody tends to bully elsewhere, we'll do the same thing.
But even think of slavery. Slavery is a big trauma in the workplace. and you find that something like that, or the forced labor that you get in many countries, eventually what happens is the ones who are making the money off the backs of those who are not, you'll find by third or fourth generation that surfaces as a trauma in the workplace, and you can lose the company.
Some people might say, who cares, that's 3-4 generations down, I'm going to have enough money for all my kids and grandkids, or they're going to be able to figure it out themselves.
Or not. Because if that's happened to you, your chances are that the victim is going to be place marked by one of your kids or grandkids. And suddenly you're going to find that either they're going to jail for stupid stuff, or they're going to lose all the money, or they'll give it away to balance.
Unfortunately, what I see is people do, oh, it's just the kid, he's just bad. And the child gets blamed for something. And what you're really saying, it's a result of something that happened in the way they ran business years ago or generations ago.
If you look back, you'll often find that, especially when you see what I call stupid stuff. They're getting themselves into jail for no good reason. They're losing money for no good reason. When it looks like stupid stuff, that's often a systemic piece that says, I'm actually atoning for a generation or two before me.
So what do you do in situations like that? If it is within the organization, so let's say someone was let go unfairly or wasn't treated well, whatever it is, and another person comes in, takes over the position, and somehow doesn't work out, so now we've got 3 or 4 people in the same position.
Right.
How do you remedy that?
I would go back to the first place where this happened and member the one who was excluded. So why were they excluded? Were they ever acknowledged for the contribution they did make? What good can we take from them in that position? And how can subsequent members now use that? And often what I'll ask people to do is put up a picture of the one who was excluded. It brings them back in.
Does it seem to be enough?
It's enough when the picture is in and there is a conscious acknowledgement of the dismissal, but also a conscious acknowledgement of what did they contribute and how could we use that. And a conscious looking to see, so where have I atoned for that, or how have I put into place not being able to do well, and then almost asking permission. Will you give me permission to do better than you did? And sometimes that's not possible. Or your other alternative is to say, for you who couldn't, I will. For you who couldn't succeed in this place, I will, but I will take pieces that you've done well and I will use these or incorporate them and you will be spoken of.
Okay. They could seem like platitudes.
They could, and if you're going to do them as platitudes, good luck, because it's going to repeat. But when there's a really serious, honest acknowledgement, and it's acknowledged by upper management, lower management gets the message, and so does the floor. So it really has to be done very well, and with a great deal of respect and insight.
So that the answer there is, or what we really need to do is to ensure that it's done well, authentically, honestly.
Absolutely.
With deep respect,
yes.
And a lot of dignity,
yes.
for all the people involved.
Sure.